Within every human being lies an extraordinary force, one of the most potent yet frequently misunderstood energies known to mankind. This isn't ordinary vitality we're discussing, but rather the fundamental creative power that has shaped civilizations, built empires, and birthed masterpieces throughout history. I speak, of course, of sexual energy, and more specifically, the transformative practice of sexual transmutation. This revolutionary concept was brought to mainstream awareness by Napoleon Hill, arguably the most influential success philosopher of the 20th century. When Hill penned his seminal work, Think and Grow Rich, he wasn't simply creating a financial guidebook. He was documenting the psychological architecture of success, having meticulously studied over 500 of history's most accomplished individuals across a quarter-century. Industrial magnates, pioneering inventors, visionary leaders, and groundbreaking artists. Among the many principles he uncovered: desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge. One stood out as particularly enigmatic: the mysterious alchemy of sexual transmutation. Hill identified sexual energy as the most formidable of all human drives, a primal force capable of fueling extraordinary creation or devastating destruction, depending on how it's directed. His groundbreaking revelation: those individuals who learn to harness and redirect this energy rather than dissipate it unlock levels of creative genius, ambition, and discipline that remain utterly inaccessible to the undisciplined mind. Decoding sexual transmutation. At its core, transmutation refers to the conversion of energy from one form to another. In this context, it represents the conscious redirection of sexual vitality away from purely physical expression and toward creative, intellectual, and spiritual pursuits. Hill emphasized that sexual energy isn't merely biological, it's multidimensional, encompassing emotional, mental, and even spiritual dimensions. When properly channeled, this energy transforms into what can only be described as rocket fuel for achievement. Critically, Hill wasn't advocating repression or denial of sexuality. His philosophy centered on conscious redirection, taking this fundamental life force and using it as propulsion for one's highest aspirations. The power of this practice lies in the essential nature of sexual energy itself. It is, at its foundation, creative energy in its purest form, the very force responsible for the generation of life. When not expended in physical reproduction, this energy doesn't simply vanish. It remains within the body and nervous system, waiting to be utilized. Left untapped, it manifests as frustration and tension. But when focused with intention, it becomes the driving force behind extraordinary accomplishment. Modern scientific research validates this ancient wisdom. Elevated testosterone levels, when conserved rather than depleted, correlate directly with increased drive, enhanced focus, greater willpower, and heightened mental clarity. The individual becomes more alert, more ambitious, and more resilient. However, and this is crucial, this alchemical transformation only occurs when the energy is directed toward purposes greater than immediate gratification. Without this higher orientation, the energy remains trapped in cycles of lust and temporary pleasure. Historical proof of principle. Hill's extensive research revealed a striking pattern among history's highest achievers. The most accomplished men were invariably those with highly developed sexual natures who had mastered the art of transmutation. Consider, Napoleon Bonaparte converted his passionate nature into military and political conquest. Thomas Edison channeled his relentless energy into world-changing inventions. Abraham Lincoln directed his intense inner fire toward justice and national transformation. These men weren't devoid of sexual desire, they simply refused to be enslaved by it. They understood how to transform primal energy into creative and productive output. The modern crisis of energy. Contemporary society presents a stark contrast to this disciplined approach. Today, we face an epidemic of porn addiction, instant gratification, and dissipated vitality. The results speak for themselves. Unprecedented levels of male depression, distraction, and existential emptiness. Hill warned prophetically that most men never learn to govern their sexual impulses, instead becoming controlled by them, sacrificing reason and long-term achievement for momentary pleasure. His message wasn't one of condemnation, but of elevation. Unchecked sexual energy can indeed destroy lives, but that same energy, when mastered and redirected, becomes the engine of destiny. Practical mastery. The path of transmutation. 1. Conscious conservation. Begin by ending the casual waste of vital energy. This doesn't imply permanent abstinence, but rather intentional conservation. Try 30 days without pornography or mindless indulgence. Observe the dramatic sharpening of mental faculties, the surge in physical vitality, and the intensification of creative drive. 2. Strategic redirection. When sexual desire arises, as it naturally will, don't suppress it. Convert it. Channel that surging energy into your business, your craft, your physical training, or your intellectual pursuits. Napoleon Hill documented that men who developed this skill found sexual energy becoming the fuel for all their accomplishments. 3. Higher purpose alignment. Sexual energy requires a worthy container. Without a compelling mission, it inevitably leaks into empty indulgence. Daily, ask yourself, what am I building that's more significant than my next moment of pleasure? Those constructing businesses, brands, or legacies find every act of discipline becomes sacred. 4. The non-negotiable truth. Hill made clear that sexual energy forms the foundation of all genius. There has never been, and never will be, a great leader, builder, or thinker without it. The choice is simple. Remain enslaved to base impulses, or transmute this energy and become what the world has never seen. 5. The sacred responsibility. Feeling desire doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. What makes you powerful is what you do with that energy. Transmutation isn't merely a technique, it's a philosophy of existence, a sacred commitment to build rather than waste, to create rather than consume, to leave a legacy rather than merely relieve tension. Freudian parallels. The science of sublimation. Sigmund Freud, father of psychoanalysis, independently arrived at remarkably similar conclusions, terming this process sublimation. In Freud's framework, human behavior is fundamentally driven by unconscious desires, primarily the libido or sexual drive. However, civilization requires that we transform these raw impulses into socially productive forms. Freud made critical distinctions. Suppression, pushing down desires, leads to psychological dysfunction. Sublimation, conscious redirection, fuels creativity and achievement. He argued that all civilization essentially represents sublimated sexual energy, that every symphony, scientific breakthrough, and architectural marvel springs from this transformed primal force. Modern applications. In our era of hyperstimulation and instant gratification, sublimation has never been more vital. We're drowning in dopamine hits while starving for meaningful accomplishment. The solution lies not in denying our nature, but in elevating it through 1. Awareness training. Recognize impulses without immediately acting on them. 2. Creative channels. Develop consistent practices to transform energy into output. 3. Delayed gratification. Strengthen the psychological muscle of patience and purpose. 4. Sacred routines. Establish morning rituals that direct energy upward. 5. Elevated environments. Surround yourself with reminders of your higher nature, the ultimate choice. Within you burns the same fire that powered history's greatest achievements. Will you let it consume you in empty pleasure, or will you harness it to illuminate the world? Napoleon Hill provided the map. Freud revealed the psychological mechanics. Now, the path awaits your footsteps. The question remains, will you master the fire, or will it master you? The disciplined individual doesn't fear desire. They embrace it, channel it, and with it, light the way for others. Your potential is infinite. The time to act is now. If this video leaves you feeling inspired, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like, share, and drop a comment telling us what you'd love to see us cover next. Thank you for watching.